Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Ins and Outs with Lynn and Liam. Today we got some awesome articles for y'all, and I'm going to go first. So my article is titled, Sperm Don't Swim, They Twirl Like Otters, which obviously I had to choose it. It's about otters, and everybody loves otters. And so
everybody loves otters.
Literally, I mean, I often remind people about they do terrible things to other animals, but they are adorable and they sleep with each other's hands and they eat things off their bellies, so you can't not like them.
And they mate for life.
They also murder animals and do other terrible things to their corpses, but we won't talk about that.
I mean, so do we.
And so do humans. So do most mammals. So this article starts out talking about the first guy who ever saw sperm swim in real life. And it was this Dutch scientist, Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, I'm going to say, which I probably butchered it, so I'm sorry to any Dutch folk out there who know actually how to pronounce it. And so he invented the microscope and then jerked off and looked at his sperm, which, duh, he's a dude, and of course he did.
Yeah, that line was really funny, too. It was like, 340 years ago, he invented this microscope. And then soon after, he examined his sperm. And it's like, yeah, that seems like what they would do.
Yeah, I mean, if I invented something where I could see microscopic things, I'd be like, what does my sperm look like microscopic? I bet he was hoping he could see, little himselves walking around. Or, something.
Sadly.
So maybe proving God or something. But so, he actually, what I did find surprising is he discovered what would become known as bacteria before he discovered sperm. So he did some digging before he jerked off, which props.
Self-control.
Self-control, yeah, doing his job. So it turns out when you look at sperm in a 2D, two-dimensional kind of flat plane, it looks like their tails are going back and forth and swimming. However, with a new technology called 3D microscopy, they can now see a 3D version of the sperm. And instead of their tails going back and forth and swimming, the sperm's tails actually only go in one direction. So they just flap this way. And if it wasn't for the spinning action that they do, they would actually just spin in a circle. So to counteract that, they decided to start twirling, and this twirl kind of makes them go in a circle, and then this push makes them go forward.
Like a river otter.
Like a river otter.
Or a sea otter.
Or a sea otter, yeah. Any sort of otter. Freshwater, saltwater. I actually found out there's otters near the lake I go to, and I was really excited about that.
There's otters on Grand Island.
Oh, really?
I have some thoughts about Grand Island generally, but any place that has river otters.
Are you sure otters on Grand Island?
Yeah, somebody who lives on Grand Island told me that.
Are they sure they weren't seeing just another sort of weird mammal?
Like a groundhog?
Like a groundhog or something just walking through the backyard? Because I don't think there's any otters in Grand Island.
It's a river, and there are river otters.
There are river otters, but river otters usually live farther north around the West Coast.
I mean, I could be wrong. I'll Google it. Okay, I'll get back to everybody.
Next episode, we'll tell you guys if there's otters.
Mash the subscribe button, and you'll find out.
You know where there are otters, though? The Buffalo Zoo.
Grand Island.
The Buffalo Zoo, not the Grand Island.
Oh, yeah, there are. Yeah, I like them at the Buffalo Zoo.
So one of my favorite lines from this thing is the author writes, human sperm, so he was talking about how they learn to twirl, and he calls them cheeky little creatures.
Yeah, no, I really like that.
I was very colorful writing.
This new science that came out that shows the 3D, they determined that they swirl like otters, and then they were like, we're going to study this for another 2 years.
Yeah.
There's just so much ejaculation that is happening for this study. I mean, you think about the people who do scientific studies, answer these questions and you get a $10 gift card or whatever. There's all these people out there who's masturbating so that we can find out how sperms swirls like otters.
Yeah, and they like the findings were so like outside of what anybody thought that they said that like we had to continuously do these experiments just to make sure.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. Do you think they really had to keep doing it, or do you think they just wanted to like keep jerking off? It's an excuse to jerk off at work.
I think that they found out that they swirl like river otters, and they knew this could be some revolutionary science.
Yeah. And so one thing is that they don't actually know why they do this. So I was thinking maybe like they do it to conserve energy. Like maybe like just the one-way tail and the spin kind of like corkscrew propels you with less energy than like a flap in motion.
Yeah, do you know, I think about this often when people talk about how they're like so good at like pulling out and stuff. And this kind of study shows that like science and evolution is like pretty serious. And like we've got sperm out there like swirling and like not going in circles and knowing how to adjust. And so like the fact that people think that they're just like gonna out like smart evolution is the funniest thing to me. It's like, no, sperm is on another level. Like you cannot out, they are cheeky little creatures and they are not to be fooled with because they are smart.
Oh yeah.
And this proves it.
Yeah, I mean I always tell kids like you think you're good, or even adults, you think you're good at pull-out method, but literally like millions of years of evolution had made you terrible at it.
Yeah, and this is just like, you're not going to beat them. They have thought of everything. They're like, oh, shoot, we're going in circles. Oh, wait, let's do these sweet little swirls and propel. They're just smart, cheeky little sperm.
Smart little cheeky bees.
I do think it's funny to think about like studies and like when we teach, I don't know if you teach it, but we teach like how fast ejaculate comes out. Mm-hmm. And some students are like, how do they know that? And it's just nice to know that there's all these studies, like somebody is dedicating their life or 2 years of their life to determining like this funny, weird fact about sperm. That's really not, I guess it is important, right? But it's not like curing cancer, like life and death. Yeah. And so it's funny to think like, what else are they studying out there related to our genitals that just seems so weird?
I don't know, like who's giving them the grant money for this? Like,
right. Is this like an NIH grant? Like,
is it top of the list of things that we're studying? Because like I need grants for things, not to do with sperm that I think is a bit more important.
Although they did say it could help with fertility.
Yeah, but I mean like the world already has 7 billion people on it. I don't think we have a huge problem with fertility.
Yeah. I'm just curious. Like, it's like with the sperm, how fast it comes out. How did they like identify the speed and how much like
you froze. Lynn? Lynn! All right, I don't know what happened to Lynn. This may be a 2-part episode. All right, and we're back. Lynn is no longer frozen.
Yeah, so my husband watches anime during the day, and sometimes it causes our internet to collapse.
So me and Jay in Buffalo don't have this problem, but in Memphis we've had this problem a few times. And like if I'm on a work video call and he's on a work video call, one of us has to like switch to our cell phones.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but it seems to happen.
Yeah, I don't really get it.
I don't know. I feel like I pay for it. 2 things should be able to be on, but what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I pay enough for like multiple things to be on.
Yeah, that's true. I do also about the sperm article. I just like that it was like a serious news article, but they also embedded a river otter video into it. So it's like, in case you don't know how cute these animals are, here's a zoo vid.
I mean, I think that's a little like clickbaity, right? Like everybody loves otters, so we're just gonna add otters to this thing so people click on it.
And I would fall for it.
I did fall for it.
I mean, we are talking about this article, and we are hoping that it's clickbaity and that we get more views because people are like, oh, I like otters. I like sperm.
Yeah, I'm going to title this thing something about otters and periods.
Yeah.
Because the next one's about periods.
Do you have anything to add about river otters or sperm?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think we talked enough. Let's talk about yours. Yours is much more important.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's more. It's more important. So my article was from Philly Magazine, and I'm pulling it up, and it is called "Not Everyone in Philly Has Access to Period Products," and basically it goes through and it talks about how. Are you familiar with the phrase period poverty?
I was not until I read this article.
Yeah. So the idea is that there are all sorts of people out there who menstruate who experience poverty in a way that makes it so they can't afford any sort of menstrual products. So they get their period every month. And it said that 2/3 of women who live in, or I'm sorry, 2/3 of people who menstruate who live in cities have experienced lack of products because of money in the last year,
Yeah.
which is a lot, right? And then 1/5 of uterus owners menstruated or missed school last year because they couldn't take care of their menstruation. And it makes you think about it a lot. Like, it's true. If you don't have money, where do you get menstruation products?
Oh yeah, and so a few things about this article like surprised me too, because like I've talked about this. I've never called it like period poverty because I never knew that term. But I've talked about like this like issue, right? But I always say it like, especially when I'm talking about like Diva cups and like reusable products, because kids are like, oh, that's gross. I always say things like, well, you know, in like other countries in like Africa where people are like much more low income and don't have readily access supplies of period products, these kinds of reusable products can save their lives and allow them to go to school. And I kind of forgot or didn't even like realize maybe that it was a problem in the States.
Yeah. I mean, so when I was younger, we had this issue, but it was a combination of being poor and also my dad was the primary shopper for the house and he didn't menstruate. And so it was like just a bad combination. But there's also, I was really interested, so there's menstrual equity, right? And you think about that, but the article talks about how we talk about like reducing taxes on tampons, right? So like there's all this talk like, oh, taxes shouldn't be tamped, tampons shouldn't be taxed. It's an essential item. But like we are talking about what, 35 or 40 cents? And if the problem is that they can't afford the $8 to buy the tampons, like the 40 cents means nothing.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to think about it that way, because I do think that a lot of the solutions that we talk about are just like solutions to small problems and not the bigger problem.
Yeah. And they talked about how kind of like the whole like tampon industry and stuff is very like white, like, I mean, like every freaking industry in the United States, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of like this like white people problem a lot of times where it's like, oh, I got to pay taxes on it. Like, really?
Right. But the real question is like, why, like, how are people, because tampons are expensive. Like,
Yeah.
and it also talked about something I really valued, which was like preferences, because we think about like low income people and a lot of times people just are like, oh, they should take what we give them or whatever. But the truth is like, you don't have a vagina, but like what you use for your menstruation is actually like pretty, like you have a preference. Like I have a brand, I have an applicator, like, and once in a while, so you know, I work downtown and there's a dollar store right next door. And once in a while I won't have a tampon, so I'll go next door and I'll buy like the cheapest ones, and they'll have like, it's just not comfortable. It like chafes. It's like a paper applicator and I don't like a paper applicator. And so the thought that like people are just told like, oh, take what you get. And it's something that they have to do like 4, 5, 7 days out of the month, multiple times a day. Your vagina gets chafy. It's not comfortable. And you just don't think about it as a privilege to be like, oh, I only wear X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm. I've talked to young girls who are like, I'll be like, hey, we have this tampon, or this, not tampon, usually it's like a pad, right? and they'll, especially like in schools, and they're like, oh, I can't use that pad because it won't even like fit on underneath my pants, because they're like diaper pads, almost like one size fits all giant pads that like anybody can use, but they don't, like, they're just gonna like look like a diaper underneath this poor girl's clothes. And she's like, I can't use this thing.
Or they're too thin, and it's like day one when you're gushing blood, which some people do gush blood on day one, and that's just how it is. And you don't really think about it, but like, if you can't control your menstruation, like I wouldn't, so if I didn't have tampons on day 1 and 2 of my period, I wouldn't be able to leave the house.
And that's 2 days every month where someone can't go to work, go to school.
They're ruining their clothes. So if they do go to work and like they bleed through, like, and that's not everybody. Obviously, some people have manageable periods, but like I'm telling you, I would make it like 25 minutes into my workday before I was like creating a trail of blood. I'm sorry, that's disgusting, but it's true.
Yeah, no,
that would be the scenario, right? That's like the case.
That's how, it's how bodies are. Like so I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were telling me about how like awesome their boyfriend is, because he actually like goes to buy them tampons and stuff. And she's like, we were at like Darien Lake one time, and they were riding a roller coaster, and during the roller coaster, like something about like the drop, she said, I don't know if it's true or not, kids, like I don't think they even know if it's true or not, but she's like, during one of the drops, I just felt my period come, and I bled through my pants in just the time I was on that roller coaster. And her boyfriend like wrapped his jacket around her and stuff like that. But I was like, it's crazy how quickly like it just happens.
Yeah. And if you're like not on a method of birth control and you don't know when your period's coming, it can just like, so like I'm on a method that is making my period irregular because I'm transitioning off. And like, I don't even know when my period's gonna come. I can tell because like I'm tender and I cry a lot, and I'm like, oh, I get it, I'm menstruating. But that's the only way I know.
Yeah.
And like, just to think, it's, you know, and you're right, because we don't think about it because we have the money to buy our bougie tampons. But you know, in New York State, it is required that schools provide them. But they also talk about this, like we're providing people with like 3 pads. That's enough to last you how long, right? And so the nonprofit in this article, they do 50 deliveries a day, I think it said. And they do 3 months at a time, so that the person is properly stocked. They are doing 200 deliveries a week, they said.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so, yeah, this article isn't just about, right, like the lack of access to tampons and pads. It's about this nonprofit that was started in Pittsburgh, or Philly, to like kind of like take over or like kind of like help with this gap, because so many girls like are experiencing it. The thing that I thought was crazy was like one of the women who started it, she's like, I started it because I was talking to this young girl who was like robbing and like selling herself to make money to buy pads. Like, that's mind blowing.
Yeah. I mean, but I would do the same thing, right? Like,
yeah.
There are things you have to do, like and so the point is it should be covered with like food stamps, right? Like,
yeah, there's nothing. It's not covered with food stamps or Medicaid? Are you serious?
But do you know, people keep talking about this and they're like, so do you know what's the stimulus act that just passed?
The CARES Act?
Is it CARES or is it the one before? Whatever, the one that got us our $1,200. And that one, they slipped in that tampons are now able to be purchased with their FSA, which is like fine if you have an FSA, which is like a flex spending account or a health saving account. But like, does that really solve the root problem?
No, it's not solving this problem, because anybody who has an FSA can probably spend the money to just buy tampons anyways.
Right. I mean, usually with those things, you're contributing to them. So maybe just like contribute $8 less and buy tampons. Yeah. So again, it's like the tax-free thing, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, FSAs are tax-free too. So it's again like another just tax-free kind of thing.
Right. For people like me.
Yeah.
I also just find it frustrating when people talk about like, so you mentioned Diva Cups, and Diva Cups can be like really impactful in countries where there are issues. But a lot of times I feel like we highlight this like need for like, oh, you should use Diva Cups, it's more environmentally friendly. And that's true, but it is actually a lot of work to use a Diva cup. Like you have to you have to boil it. Like there is a lot of time and labor into it. And I feel like a lot of times we shame people who don't try alternative products. But the truth is, like, man, if you're having a long day, sometimes you just want to put a tampon in.
Yeah.
You don't want to boil something after I've had a really long day. If I had to boil a freaking menstrual cup right now, I would just free bleed all over my house.
Did you boil your menstrual cup every day?
I don't know how often, but you're supposed to boil it frequently, yeah.
Wow.
Like I have friends who have a separate pot to boil it in because they don't want to boil their menstrual cup in the same pot that they like make their noodles in.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Or if like it melts while you're boiling it?
No, it's like some sort of silicone.
Yeah, but it won't like melt like on the metal or anything?
I don't know. Maybe that's what we'll talk about next week. Menstrual cups.
Menstrual.
Or like the idea that people are like, you should use reusable tampons or reusable pads. And like, that's cool if you have the time, but like, I can barely manage washing my own clothes. And I have a washer and dryer.
Yeah, and even like reusable pads, I've been told like they're great for some people, but if you have a really heavy flow, they're not going to work that well for you. And again, they're giant, right? So they're like it's like wearing a freaking sponge in your underpants, and a lot of people just don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, and so I should add, do you know that PPCWNY is doing a virtual menstrual product fundraiser?
I did not.
Yeah.
How can people find out more about this?
We have an Amazon wish list, which Liam, you could link in the information.
Oh, I will.
It's for the Upstate New York Girl Up Coalition, and because of COVID, we used to have people drop it off at the clinic, but now it's an Amazon wish list, so people can buy it and it'll get mailed.
Nice. We'll make sure we link that in the thing so all of our amazing viewers can maybe, if they have extra money, do a little bit of something.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like where I live in Niagara Falls, where do you get free pads or tampons? Especially
right now, like the schools are out. Nowhere, right? I mean, maybe the connection. Sometimes we have them.
Yeah, I try to keep them in the bathroom, and I guess you could take as many as you wanted.
Yeah, we wouldn't care.
I don't.
But that's another thing is like we get grants, right? Or like the state gives us like free condoms, but the state's not giving us like free tampons. What the hell's about that?
Well, and they mandated school districts give out pads and products, but then it's a cost on the school district. And I feel like if it's not easily accessible, like, are people going to use it? If it's in the nurse's office, am I going to go to a nurse if I'm like a really shy vagina owner and be like, oh, excuse me, it just should be it should be like in a bathroom.
Yeah, I mean, we already shame or not we shame, but young girls are already there's so much shame, right, around having your period in general anyways. It will be really nerve-wracking, I bet, to go to your nurse and ask them for a pad. And then also, what if your friends see, not that you should be ashamed, but I'm just trying to think about how they might think. If I'm going to the nurse to get a pad and my friends see me going to the nurse to get a pad, they're gonna be making fun of me, why can't I afford pads, right?
Right. And this nonprofit in Philly said that they used to deliver it really stealthily because there was a lot of shame around it. But they also said that a lot of the people, I mean, there's a lot of shame about people how they spend their money. And, with all this $600 a week and everybody's like, oh, people are getting $600 a week and they are, whatever, they're not saving or whatever. The truth is $8 to $15 a month is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? That's what, $150 maybe a year that you're spending on vagina products that are, that's a lot of money.
Is it only $8 a month? Because how long does one box of pads last or one box of tampons?
Well, it's complicated because you have to have different types for different days. And I also am I give up halfway through day 3 and I'm just I'm going to risk it. And then I regret it. I find menstruating to just be truly one of my least favorite things on the planet.
I've heard that from many people, many vagina owners.
I just wish you could stop it.
Yeah. And even birth controls that we talk about might stop it, might not, and might just lead to you randomly bleeding out of your vagina, which may be even worse.
It is truly worse because you don't know what's coming and then you ruin a lot of clothes. Okay, Liam. Well, this was a thrill.
It was a thrill. And yeah, we'll link to that Amazon wish list and everything. And we will see y'all next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Sorry about the technical difficulties in the middle.
And sign up for donate a box of pads or tampons because you're going to waste $8 on something stupid in the next week, just like I do. And so instead of buying a fancy sandwich for lunch, just donate some tampons.
Definitely. I'm going to go donate some tampons right now.
Okay, bye, Liam.